to a human I can depend on to bring me happy. Thank you, happy.
Hello, my old friend. We hope you're as happy as we are that we're back with another Season 2 episode of A Captain's Log, your source for everything related to more than half a century of Star Trek. My name is Brian Kreutz, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Lily Fox-Lim.
Oh, thank you, Brian. And I'm glad you started off by quoting our theme song, which is titled Happy. It was written by Brianna Lanzin, and we think the title of the song fits the show perfectly because amid all the craziness in this world, it brings us great happiness to delve into the vast Star Trek universe with you every week.
Yes, it does, Lily. And not only delve into it, but share it with a growing number of enthusiastic Trekkies from across the planet Earth. And we're told at least one other planet also.
Yes, according to our lovable ginger-haired co-host, he's bringing us a lot of viewers on planet S02E04.
Wait.
How to understand the human consciousness and emotion I have.
Wow, what a spectacular entrance, Raj. That's your best one yet.
We keep bringing stunt people onto the show, so I figured I should learn a few stunts of my own.
That's correct. Raj, back in episode 3 of this season, our interview guest was Patricia Tallman, a stunt woman who has worked on dozens of episodes of 3 Star Trek series.
That was a very interesting interview, and I think today's interview will also be very interesting. We'll beam up Star Trek stuntman Dennis Madalone in just a few minutes, but first we have several exciting news items to tell you about.
First off, it looks like Star Trek Picard is off to a good start, with Q being a center focal plot point, plus Guinan listening to Picard's reasons on the single life and choosing Starfleet over that. Yet, Jean-Luc is still open for a relationship. Now, Lily, Guinan listening to Picard and also giving advice over a drink was really nice to see.
Yes, BK, it was really nice to see Guinan at the 10 Forward bar in Los Angeles. It's conceivable that the ageless Guinan remained in California for the next 130 years after we first saw her in the Next Generation episode Time's Arrow in San Francisco.
Yes.
Star Trek toy collectors, get ready to add a lot more items to your shopping list. Playmates Toys has announced the Star Trek Universe Collection. It'll start in July with the release of 8 action figures, which are Picard, Riker, and Data from Next Generation, Admiral James T. Kirk, Captain Spock, and Khan from the Wrath of Khan film, and Science Officer Michael Burnham and Commander Saru from Star Trek Discovery. And Playmates also says that more items will be released in the series in 2023.
That sounds so cool, especially for you collectors out there. I know I had a lot of action figures back in the day. Now, we now have a release date for the new series Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's a prequel to the original Star Trek series back in the 1960s. Now, Strange New Worlds features 3 actors reprising their roles from Star Trek Discovery. Now, it premieres May the 5th. You guessed it, on Paramount Plus. Now, a second season's already in the works.
And if you haven't done so already, we have yet another reason for you Trekkies to subscribe to Paramount Plus. The 3rd season of the adult animated series Star Trek Lower Decks is now scheduled for a release this summer, and the series has already been renewed for a 4th season.
A Captain's Log returns in a moment.
Welcome back to A Captain's Log. Thank you so much for joining us.
And our interview guest from this episode has represented the Star Trek universe very well for more than 30 years. He's a stuntman who got his start back in 1973 in the TV series called Kojak. And that began a long string of TV work that included almost every episode of The Greatest American Hero. I was really young, Lily, but I vaguely remember seeing that on television. He made his Star Trek debut back in 1987 with The Next Generation, followed by Deep Space Nine and Voyager, working on an extraordinary 315 episodes combined of all 3 series.
Wow.
Now, in more recent years, he worked on 90 episodes of the TV series called Castle. He currently has 143 IMDb stunt credits in addition to 31 acting credits, and he's still going strong at the age of 67. Dennis Madalone, welcome to A Captain's Log, and thank you so much for joining us.
Great.
Dennis, I want to spend a couple minutes on your start with Stephen J. Cannell's Greatest American Hero TV series. Now, you're reading a script on the beach that ultimately gets you into the super suit, right? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, The Greatest American Hero, when I got the script, it was sent to me by Alex Beaton and Stephen J. Cannell. I happened to be in New Jersey on a week vacation that I always take. I like to go back to the Jersey Shore and hang out with the family and Linda, my wife, and everybody. And I got the script, and I'm reading the script on the beach, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I got to double this guy. He's like flying everywhere and crashing everywhere. I said, I hope they cast an actor that looks like me with long brown hair. I flew back and met with Stephen J. Cannell and Alex and William Catt. They casted the actor, and he was the opposite of me. He had short curly hair, and we were about the same height. And when William Catt came into Alex Beaton's office and Alex introduced me, William Catt walked away after, and he's walking down the hallway. As he's walking, I pop out of Alex's office and I yelled at Billy Catt. I go, this is the first time I met him. I go, hey, nice meeting you. And he goes, oh, and Billy goes, oh, by the way, my double is Buddy Joe Hooker, who's a great stuntman. And Billy Catt turned around and started walking away, and I yelled, not anymore. I'm gonna double you. And Billy smiled. I went back in the office and looked at Alex. I said, are you gonna put a long brown hair on William Catt so I can double him? And Alex said, get real. You're going to cut your hair, spray it blonde and curl it up. And we all laughed. And that was the beginning of, a really fun run to be able to put on a super suit. I remember being a kid in New Jersey, like 8 years old, and I used to have red pajamas and used to dive off my double bunk bed into the bureau and crash all the time. And my parents always thought there's got to be something wrong with Dennis. He's flying into walls and stuff. So when I first put on the super suit for real, I looked in the mirror with Stephen J. Cannell right over my shoulder, and suddenly I had a flashback, and it was me being a kid.
Dennis, after you're jumping off the bunk beds and then breaking records in high school, was your family supportive of your stuntman ambition?
My parents, when I was a little kid growing up, I started at age 5. I started throwing myself down the steps in New Jersey and jumping off my roof and climbing trees, and I'd break the branch and ride the branch to the ground and crash. And there seemed to be a method to the madness, but what I was getting was attention, from my family and friends. They all thought like, hey, buddy, hi, hey, he's the greatest American hero right here. But I started getting attention doing these great physical things. I didn't know why I was doing it. I just knew that they were fun. So my parents, they dealt with me jumping off my roof, and my mom brought me in to have me tested to see if there was something wrong with me, why I was throwing myself into walls. So by the time I got to high school, I took that energy and I'm doing sport. And my senior year, I broke the school record in pole vaulting. Wow. And I started thinking, wow. And then people started saying, you should be a stuntman. And I go, wow. And that all clicked because that's what I've been doing the whole time. I've been doing stunts.
Now, Dennis, how did you first get involved in the industry? We want a little bit more detail into it. I know you went into it with the pilot, but tell us a little bit more about this industry start.
I'm a kid in New Jersey. I'm going to California. I don't know anyone out here. I'm 18 years old. I got $52 in my pocket in a suitcase. But I came out here because I heard from a man called Mr. Faulkner on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood, called Faulkner Studios. He wrote me a letter back saying, come on out, I'll make you a stuntman. So I went off of that. When I got here, I walked into his studio, and he was about like 80 years old, and he trained Errol Flynn and just all these historic people that I've been watching on TV since I was a kid. And he took me to all these rooms where how he trained really actors. The actors knew how to play stuff and how to dance, and it was that kind of studio that he had. And then he finally took me into a room where they do sword fighting. And I go, all right, that's fighting. That's the word I heard with swords. And it cost, $50 for this, $80 for that. So it wasn't a lot of money, but I didn't really have much. And so I told Mr. Falconer I'd be back. And I walked on Hollywood Boulevard and I said to myself, wow, this is not the place I wanted. And then within 10 seconds of that, a stranger in the street literally walked up to me, goes, "You look lost." And yes, I did. Suitcase, Hollywood Boulevard, kid from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I came out here to be a stuntman, and this is more of an acting school. And he goes into a phone booth, which they had back then, right?
Right.
Where are the phone booths now? He goes in the phone booth and he spends a minute there, comes back and hands me a piece of paper with Paul Stader's name on it. And this is the only stunt school in the world.
Wow, that's like fate for you that it all worked out, and so quickly too. What a nice act of kindness to call you on the payphone and set you up with Mr. Stader's stunt school. You began your long association with Star Trek back in 1987 with The Next Generation. In the episode where No One Has Gone Before, did you coordinate the stunts for standing in front of the wall of fire on this deck of the Enterprise for the scene? And how did you and Patrick Stewart keep from getting burnt?
I remember going to Paramount for the first time to see my friend that was doing the first episode. The stunt coordinator was Glenn Wilder. And Glenn was another stuntman, an incredible person, stuntman that helped me in my career. And he was coordinating the first episode. So I went out to see him at Paramount just to say hi. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm doing Star Trek The Next Generation." I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "Are you going to do the whole series?" He goes, "No, I'm just doing this, just episode 1. And went back home and was working on some other projects. And 2 weeks later, I got a call from Rob Bowman. He's directing episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
Where No One Has Gone Before.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. He goes, "Come on in. I want to bring in on Star Trek." And I go, "Hey, if Glenn was doing that show," I'm thinking like, "Oh, it's cool. I get to jump on there." So I'm going to coordinate episode 3. And I'm going to play a Starfleet and do a scene with Patrick Stewart. I remember doing the scene and having a lot of fun. It was just a blast meeting everybody. You know, when you have a good time, you just remember every moment. And yeah, I remember meeting him and doing the scene with him. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I met Rick Berman for the first time when I was reading for the part. And I don't think Rick really looked at me because I had kind of long hair at the time, not as long as this. And Rick was looking at me thinking, we want a guy that's clean cut and it's not, I don't know, you look Italian, Italian people in space. You know, I'm thinking maybe that. But Rob said, no, you'll cut your hair, right, Dennis? Right in front of Rick. I said, yeah, I'll cut it. And you're going to coordinate it and do the fire scene. So it was like a 2-for-1. I'm going to do both. And so from the get-go, I was always going to do both. So yeah, we got it. I got the haircut. I still got to keep a little bit. If you notice the scene, I slipped back and kept a couple inches in the back.
Yeah.
The wide shots were all visual effects. So Patrick Stewart never was really near any fire.
Ah, okay.
You know, when he was doing, "Get rid of it, it's in your mind," I think that was just lights flashing, fake heat on him. And then they cut to a close-up of me. And then that close-up, when I was really doing this on the tight shot, that was real fire. It was Dick Brownfield set up special effects, set up these bars underneath the camera, putting up real flame. So that was real. So when you see me really flinching, it was real heat. But I had a little fire gel on, and you know, we kept safe. I'm not going to stick myself in the fire. It was stabilized. Mm-hmm. So that was real. But the wide shot was all visual effects. And that looked pretty good. And that was, I just remember finishing that day and fun. And I never knew I was going to come back. And so I always tell everyone, you know, you never know what one day can bring. And that one day turned into 14 years, 389 episodes, and friends that I have today that I love so much.
So awesome. I really like looking back, and after a story like that, I'm sure it was a treat for you to be at Paramount, eventually doing Star Trek.
I never thought of coming back again. And then Rob Bowman did episode number 5, and I came back and we killed off a bunch of, so this time I brought in like 5 of my stunt buddies. We killed them all off. And then Sam Friedel was the unit manager, and he asked me, you know, I need someone to ride a horse and double Captain Picard on one of the episodes, but I don't really need a coordinator. Can you help me out on the side? I go, yeah. So I got him a stuntman and he put him on a weekly, just rode a horse, doubling Captain Picard. And then episode 8 came up, and a different director was directing. It wasn't Rob Bowman. And I showed up on a set and it's like, what's going on here? It's like, usually it's just the directors. Well, Sam Frito and David Livingston and Rob Bowman, they opened the door. And suddenly the company started liking this crazy kid from New Jersey, right?
Right.
And so now I'm doing episode 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I walked up to David Livingston and I said, am I your stunt coordinator now? And he goes, oh, we didn't tell you? I go, what? He goes, oh, this is your show. I go, oh, man, this is great. So that was it. I'm doing TNG. I figured for the season. I didn't know they were going to go for 7 years. I walked up to David Livingston, and then suddenly Deep Space Nine was coming up, and I went into David's office. I said, I can do both shows at the same time. He goes, are you sure? I said, I used to do 4 shows at the same time.
Oh, my gosh.
And he looked at me, he goes, it's yours. And then history went on, and then the Voyager. So I was doubling up and running from stage to stage and meeting just all the crews from all 3 shows. They all been, to me, it was all one merging crew.
Now, in regards to your scene playing crewman Ramos in the Next Generation Klingon episode Heart of Glory, tell us how that scene played out. Were you cast as Ramos, the security officer, and coordinating the stunts? Because you own this scene, I vividly remember. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that still was kind of in the beginning of my career on Star Trek. That was, if I had to guess, somewhere around episode 8 or 9 or somewhere in there. And so I was still fresh on the show. And I remember playing the Starfleet. And I remember telling the producers that I'll play the Starfleet and then I'll double the Klingon that's going to get shot and fall through the engineer floors all the way down to the bottom floor.
Wow.
And they said, how can you do that? I said, well, there's about a 5-hour gap.
Yeah.
And it takes 3 hours for makeup. I can do both. So I played the Starfleet and got zapped. And I remember the other Starfleet was John Escobar, a great stuntman. And I remember him getting zapped. And I remember the minute they wrapped that scene, it was like, hurry up, get Dennis in makeup and let's make him a Klingon. And that's unheard of, to play Starfleet guy yourself and get blasted and then actually double one of the lead Klingons and get shot and fall through the engine floor, levels of floor. I mean, that was pretty cool to achieve that. No one thought I couldn't. It was late. It was a long day. It was probably a 16-hour day. And Rob Bowman set up this beautiful angle of me falling through. And I remember David Livingston walking up to our DP, Mr. Brown. They went up to the special effects, Dick Brownfield. How long before you put in the breakaway glass for Dennis? Because they want to wrap. I mean, it's 16 hours. The overtime is massive. And I remember the effects guy, he was just being sarcastic. I'll let you know, like maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. And They all looked at each other like, oh, we can't do that. Yeah. We need to wrap and we'll do this in the morning. And when I hear them talking, I'm going like, no, man, I want to do this stunt now. And so I walked up to the effects guy, Dick Brownfield, and I said, hey, pal, because I was new knowing him too. And I said, hey, buddy, let's do this tonight. He goes, Dennis, I'll have this ready for you in 10 minutes. I go, deal. I go down there and I whisper to the DP and David Livingston. I said, it'll be ready in 10 minutes. Get the cameras ready. What? 10 minutes. And they couldn't believe it.
A captain's log returns in a moment.
Welcome back to A Captain's Log. The stories we're discussing are bringing me tears of joy, Lily.
Me too.
Dennis is filling in some scenes from the Next Generation on his perspective, and we're seeing the whole picture on how they all put it together. So many cool stories and moments from episodes I saw in my childhood for many, many years. Dennis, you played such a big role, earning your way to stunt coordinator in all 3 Star Trek series.
I think Raj has a question.
Your father, Chuck Madalone, has 11 stunt credits on IMDb from 1994 to 2005. What got him into stunt work and performing in front of the camera?
Yeah, it's funny because my dad lived in Florida at the time, and just something was coming up on one of my friend's shows, and he was hiring me, and I told him, oh, hey, let's hire my dad. And so they got my dad his SAG card. And then a week later, I said, Pops, we're going to shoot you on Deep Space Nine. I brought Tom Morgo over, one of my great stunt guys, and Kenny Lesko. Irving Lewis, Mark Riccardi, and they all trained my dad like in 2 hours how to take a hit and fall backwards in the pad. My dad did great, and everyone loved my dad on the set. And you know, it's funny, people were coming up and going, "Oh, I remember your dad when he was working in the 50s." And I'm thinking like, they think my dad was a stuntman before me, and my dad got me in. So I always let them believe that. Oh yeah, my dad. Yeah. So people always just, you know, when you look at us, you would figure it came that way, right?
Yeah.
And he kept working on episodes and having fun. I remember one time on Deep Space Nine, my dad was shooting a phaser. He was going to get shot right afterwards and fall out of frame into a pad. And so we put like a cable rope on him, so when he takes the hit, we jerk him so it looks like he was blasted. Well, my dad was doing the Humphrey Bogart with the phaser.
Yeah.
You're supposed to just,
right.
you know, do it with your mind. And they optically, you know, do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the visual effect. When my dad was doing the Humphrey Bogart, you dirty rat, yeah, James Cagney, yeah. And even the DP, Marvin Rush, said, "Your dad is shooting a gun like he's from the 50s, you know?" I said, "Okay, no problem." So I told my dad, like I told most actors that do this with the phaser, I said, just aim and move a finger and keep your hand still and shoot with your mind. Or more than that, shoot with your eyes. So a visual effects guy can go off of your eyes too, you know, so they feel like something's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there we did. We finally got my dad not to do the Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney thing, and we jerked him back. And so it was fun having my dad, and he went on to do features, and he probably worked for a good 7 or 8 years in the business. And then when he turned 65, he retired.
Impressive. Thank you for sharing that perspective with us.
Check out these cool facts. Check them out.
You know, my wife, Linda Madalone, was in a lot of episodes of Star Trek.
Hi. Yes.
I do remember Linda from Deep Space Nine and Voyager.
I started using her everywhere, and she was such a great stunt woman. I was throwing her downstairs all the time, right?
Yes.
And she would say, after like 2 takes of her getting thrown downstairs, she would say, I'm done. I want to go home. I'm going, no, some people don't say that. They say one more, and she did one more. So
Yeah, no, I got to tell one quick little story where it was TNG and one of the actors, unnamed, directing for the first time, and I have to fall down these kind of wide, not steep, but wide, awkward stairs on like the spaceship or something like that. And so we're going to do a rehearsal. And so we did like 5 or 6, and I'm like, how many of these we got to do? You know, this is starting to hurt my back. You know, and Dennis is like, no, don't say that. Just keep doing what the director wants. And then when you shoot, you got to do it like it's the first time. And I'm like, I'm going to stay home tomorrow. I don't like it. I don't want to be a stunt woman.
I remember we did a couple of takes. I had my stuntman throw her down the stairs, but we throw her the right way, and she already trained to do the role. But she was so good. Even the Mary Howard, the producer, would always go, let's use Linda. Let's use Linda. She played like a cave boy in one of the Voyagers, where the lava went around this cave boy, and Chakotay went down and saved him.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I remember Mary Howard going, we want to use Linda. We want to use, and I go, this is really cool, you know? So it was so much fun to be able to use your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember years later, people said, isn't that nepotism? You know, using your brother-in-law and your dad and your wife. I go, yeah, and I love every bit of it.
We really enjoyed this time with you, Dennis. Thank you for such a wonderful discussion. We're really grateful to have you sharing your stories with us here on A Captain's Log.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week on another episode of A Captain's Log.
Hello, happy, my old friend. I'm glad you've manifested yourself into a human I can depend on to bring me happy. Ooh.